Good day everyone, I am Jade Andro Padullon from DC1B and today I will be sharing to you the lives and works of Rizal. But before that, let me introduce to you RA 1425, otherwise known as the Rizal Law, which was created through the effort of Senator Claro M. Recto and Jose P. Laurel. It was signed as a law by Ramon Magsaysay in June 12, 1956. This will be a three-part series where I will share to you the life of Rizal, his philosophical standing, and his works. So, just sit back, relax, and enjoy as you watch this video. Jose Botasio Mercado y Alonso Realonda was born on June 19, 1861 and was born in the Chinese Year of the Ox. The people who was born in this year are known to be kind, logical, caring, filled with common sense, and is always calm even in facing serious troubles, which matches to the traits that Rizal have. If in the Chinese calendar he was born as an ox, on the Western astrology he was born as a Gemini, which was known to be logical and etc. All of those traits aforementioned may have significantly helped him in his achievements in life and somewhat shape his destiny as one of the smartest persons in our country, and of course as a hero of our country. Rizal's family comes from a long way of successful people who became workers of the government, lawyers, and etc. His ancestors can be traced back to Domingo Lamco, who was a Chinese merchant or a trader who migrated in the Philippines and later was given the name Mercado. Their family was known as a Principalia, which was one of the most capable families that time. His father, Francisco Mercado, was a tenant of a land owned by a friar, while her mother was a caring wife of his family. Rizal and his siblings were 11 in total, whom some of them were quite known and talented, such as his sister Narcisa, who was a musician, and his brother Pasiano, who became a general during the Revolution. He also has a sister who was epileptic, and his sister named Concepcion, who died at the age of 3, which crushed the young heart of Rizal. Rizal, who was a small body and a large head, was a target of bullying by his siblings, and this made him somewhat conscious of his appearance. This inspired him to excel on other things such as studying and other areas of learning where he was exceptional. At a young age, Rizal was taught by a lot of people, but the person who I think to have the most influence to him is his mother Doña Chodora, who taught him about arts, craft, and alphabet and shaped and influenced him to become a good person. At the age of 9, he was sent to Binyan, Laguna to study grammar, which was common for a family that Rizal have. He being away from his family may have helped him shape himself into somewhat a reliable and self-reliant person. At the age of 11, he took an entrance exam at Ardo de Santo Tomas or Colegio de San Juan de Letran, where he was able to pass. He was really prepared for this exam. It is because he was taught extensively by Maestro Lucas Padua, who was his teacher in arithmetic, catechism, and reading and writing when he was in Binyan. Rizal came through a lot when he was studying, and this included him not accepted at Ateneo, for he was late in registration, but was later on admitted through the help of the nephew of Father Burgos. There was also a case where he needed to change his surname to Rizal for him to not be implicated to the trouble that his father was involved in. Though facing a lot of challenges, he was still able to finish with flying colors as he was able to attain a grade of sobresaliente, while at the same time being a student leader and active in extracurricular activities. He is truly an amazing person, but this was all thanks to his hard work and dedication. He later then studied at the University of Santo Tomas, where he saw the discrimination to the Filipinos, where they were taught poorly and was belittled for their thirst of knowledge. Despite that, he still excelled, especially in literacy, where he won in poem writing. He was an active activist, which later resulted for him leaving the country, as was suggested by his parents, for they were afraid for him to be implicated in the chaos. He went to Spain and continued his studies, and there he studied philosophy, ophthalmology, and literature at the Universidad Central de Madrid. Though he was in Spain, he was involved in the movement because of the dismissal of Dr. Moreta, who was also the one who introduced to him Freemasonry, where he joins the Acacia Masonic Lodge at the age of 23 with the name Dimas Alang, which later on changed into Laong Laan. Rizal's travel in Europe was a very important part of his life. Rizal was able to finish the novel Noli Me Tangere when he was staying in Heidelberg, Germany. The novel satirized both the friars and the Filipinos. Here Rizal emphasized his hatred toward the friars because of the litigation between his father and the friar who was the landlord of the hacienda. He also involved all kinds of social classes in his novel, were the rich and the poor, the educated and the ignorant, and the lawful and the lawless, who were all victims of religion and government. I was able to read the content of Noli Me Tangere way back when I was in grade 9, as it was part of our lesson in Filipino. By reading, I immediately identified that Rizal hated the friars as they were immediately introduced as the bad guys in the novel, especially with what happened to Ibarra's father. There was also the revelation where it was revealed that Padre Damaso was the real father of Maria Clara, which depicts that the friars are having sexual affairs even though they are serving the church. Another is the carnal desire of Padre Salvi towards Maria Clara and him manipulating the townspeople to instigate the downfall of Ibarra. Lastly, the lack of justice and the corruption in the church that was depicted at a time where Crispin was accused of stealing by the sacristan mayor, where we don't know what happened but one thing was clear, he was killed. Rizal and Blumentritt have been lifelong friends since the day they met. It was on May 13, 1887, when they first met in Liet Beatriz. It was Blumentritt that introduced Rizal to the book of Dr. Morga, The Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas, which resulted in Rizal being an expert in Philippine history. Even though they only met once, their friendship is close, which led to Blumentritt stopping Rizal to publish the El Filibusterismo, for it would surely lead to his death. He was also reported to cry when received the last letter that Rizal sent him before his execution. Their friendship with each other was not bounded by race or them seeing each other every day, but it was a real friendship of two people. Their friendship is rare and is one of a kind. Usually, a friendship between two people may waver after not seeing each other for several years, but their friendship is true. Even now, it is rare to find a true friend who will never forget you even if you are involved in a big trouble. Blumentritt and Rizal's relationship is like a family or brothers where they are still together after all the trouble the other was involved in. Rizal, after many years of staying in Europe, arrived in Manila on August 5, 1887, and 3 days later he went home to Calamba. During his stay in Calamba, he set up a medical clinic where he charged people at a considerable rate and gave free consultation for the poor. He established a gymnasium for fencing, which made the townspeople change their attention from gambling and cockfighting. Here we can see Rizal as a person who thinks about his countrymen. He did a lot of things to somewhat change their lifestyle and influence them, though it is not his job or it didn't even matter for him, for they were not his relatives. Rizal for me has the heart to help his people and is trying his best to influence them and help them in any way he can. Rizal also encountered a lot of problems because of his novel Noli Me Tangere, which made the Dominican friars angry and was later banned for importation, for it was found that it contains subversive contents. The creation of Noli also increased the tension in Hacienda in Calamba, which resulted in them paying more rent than they used to. Based on the action of the friars, it is obvious that they were affected by the novel of Rizal and that they are guilty of what is written in it. We can see here the illogical and oppressive actions of the friars to force Rizal to submit by implicating and causing more problems for him and even including his family in the conflict. Though there is something that happened during that time, and that is Governor General Emilio Terrero protecting Rizal from the friars and giving him security, as he found out after reading the novel that there was nothing wrong with it. Here it made me realize that even though there are bad people, there are still people who are good and are following what is right. He was then later forced to leave the country after staying for 6 months and went to Hong Kong, where he stayed for a short time. Here, for his safety and his family, he sacrificed his time together just to make sure they are safe and away from trouble. He is a selfless person, which is very admirable. After his stay in Hong Kong, he traveled to Japan where he studied Nippongo and Japanese art. Here he also met Osei-san, whom he shared sweet moments in Japan. He also worked at a Spanish legation in Japan for a month. What he has done is inspiring and something that we cannot imitate. He later left Japan and went to America, where he observed that there was no equality between the whites and the blacks and that the standard of living is very high than any other country. He also observed that the racial discrimination against Asians, that even some states ban interracial marriages. Rizal, for me, due to his curiosity and hunger for knowledge, made him more observant than many people. In the case of Asian discrimination, it is happening here in a country, though it is not the foreigners that the Filipinos are discriminating, but it is their fellow countrymen. There are Filipinos from Luzon who discriminate sa Filipinos from Visayas and Mindanao, calling them patay gutom, poor, and maids. Some even call our Muslim brothers and sisters terrorists, even though they are not. After his stay in America, Rizal arrived on the 24th of May 1888 in England, where he stayed for 10 months. There he stayed to improve his knowledge of the English language. During his stay in London, he was able to read the Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas, where he annotated it after receiving a permit to read at the museum in London. He was attached to the book as it was written with no political color and because of his impartiality. Despite that, he still criticized Dr. Morgan's work for him not able to show the abuses done by the religious organization. During his stay in London, he wrote a letter to Blumentritt telling him about his fear for his safety and his family from the Spanish. It was also in his stay in London where he became the honorary president of La Solidaridad. After reading this topic, I felt Rizal's desire to learn about the history of our country and what was life during that time. I admire his eagerness to learn and his love for our country. It did not surprise me to learn that he felt fear from the Spanish and that the life of his family may be at risk. I also envy Rizal for having such a good friend in Blumentritt who listened to him and replied to his letters every time he sent one. I was also surprised to know that he was in London when he became the honorary president of La Solidaridad because I thought he was in Madrid at that time. He was a famous, charismatic, and intelligent person as he was chosen for the position even though they have other famous people in Marcelo del Pilar. After Rizal's stay in London, he went to Paris where he published his annotation of the Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas, hoping that a lot would read and understand that the Philippines is already civilized before the Spaniards came. Upon publishing the book, there came a conflict between him and his friend, who promised to financially support his publication, but later did not fulfill it. This conflict resulted in him severing his ties to that person. During his stay in Europe, his family in the Philippines struggled a lot, and was having a hard time dealing with the agrarian conflict in Calamba, where they were forced out of their homes, and his mother and his sister Josefa being arrested, and his father and his other sibling being sent to Jolo. Here we can see the cruelty of the Spaniards toward the Filipinos. They felt that they owned our country's lands. During his stay in Madrid, there were a conflict of interest between Del Pilar and Rizal. Rizal thought that Del Pilar's strategy was to pressure the Spanish government, while Rizal wanted to go home and work with his people. This resulted in Marcelo doubting the leadership of Rizal, while Rizal saw that Del Pilar's ambition doesn't have a place in the service of the national cause. Aside from that happening, Rizal was also devastated when he found out that Leonora Rivera was married to Charles Henry Keating. He wept like a child upon knowing it. It is natural for a guy to cry upon knowing that the love of his life was married to someone else instead of him. Rizal loves Leonora so much that when he went home to the Philippines, he wanted to meet Leonora, but to no avail as he was already living in Dagupan. To soothe himself from his disappointments and broken heart, he left Madrid and went to Biarritz, France, where he stayed as a boarder of the Bustid family. They were a rich family who were very fond of Rizal and even persuaded him to marry one of his daughters. He then left Biarritz to go to Paris and then went to Brussels and then Ghent to print his second novel, El Filibusterismo. In 1891, the second novel of Rizal, El Filibusterismo, was published. It revealed the Filipino social stratification and the suffering and the oppression felt by the Filipinos at that time. It contains a message of presenting the system of government of the Philippines that dominated by very corrupt friars and self-seeking officials. I think publishing the El Filibusterismo marked the start of the end of life of Rizal, even though it's still 1891. He was even stopped by Blumentritt from publishing the book, as he saw it as a key for him to get killed. After publishing the novel, Rizal left Europe to go to Hong Kong. Later, his family followed by the help of the people who were also exiled in Jolo. There, the Rizals spent their Christmas in 1891, united in a foreign country. There, he spent his time practicing his medical skills and also met some people who helped him establish an agricultural colony in Calamba. He was also in Hong Kong when he found that the new general, Eulogio Disbohol, was cleansing those officials who were corrupt, which gave Rizal hope for reform. The cleansing that was done by the Governor General would give hope to any Filipino who wanted change in the Philippines, especially those who are desperate or wanted immediate change in the country. Rizal, who saw an opportunity, immediately wanted to go back and talk to the Governor General and to create La Liga Filipina, which was a reformist organization. After knowing that the Governor General sent those corrupt officials back to Spain, Rizal went to the Philippines from Hong Kong and arrived on June 21, 1892, and on the same day there was a secret file case against Rizal because of his anti-religion and anti-government campaign. 11 days after his arrival, he met the Governor General 5 times, where he was able to get a pardon for his father, but was not able to get his support for the Borneo project. On the 6th of July, he was summoned to the Malacanang and later arrested as he was suspected that he was the one who bought the leaflet that contains the writings Pobres Frailes. He was detained in Fort Santiago, where he was assigned to a refurbished room. After being arrested at the midnight on July 14, 1892, Rizal was sent to be deported to the Pitan, which is a Jesuit town. The superior Jesuit insisted that Rizal must be sent to the Pitan because they may be able to bring him back to Catholicism. The reason why he was deported was because of the leaflets and his publication of El Filibusterismo. But the other reason, which was because of the leaflets entitled Pobres Frailes, was not even proven that he was the one who did it. What they did to Rizal is not justifiable, and just them abusing their powers, especially the friars who were the enemy of Rizal. Though Rizal suffered injustice, he was treated well by the people there and by the politico-military governor, who gave him freedom and let him just meet him once a week. During his stay in the Pitan, Rizal together with Captain Carnicero and Francisco Iquilior won 20,000 pesos, where they split the money and Rizal received 6,200, where he sent 2,000 pesos to his father and 200 pesos to his friend Basa. The remaining money that he had was used to buying a 16 hectares agricultural land where they planted a lot of crops while integrating the modern way of farming that Rizal learned during his travels. Rizal was so lucky for winning that big sum of money. I commend him for what he had done to his money. He was able to give money to his parents and his friend and was able to buy a big chunk of agricultural land which they used in farming. He was also actively engaged in civic movements for the improvement of the Pitan. In June 21, 1893, Dr. Pio Valenzuela, a member of the Katipunan, sought the support of Rizal. Rizal thought that it is too early to incite a revolution in the Philippines. However, there are other sources where Rizal will be taken and sent to Japan, to which Rizal disagreed because the boat was too small and the coal may not be enough to reach Japan, so he suggested to be sent in Hong Kong. He was later asked by Valenzuela if he was ready to lead a revolution, to where he replied he was ready. Though I am not sure if Rizal has a connection to the Katipunan, or even the text given was not sure if he agreed or not to their offer. On November 3, 1896, Rizal was taken in custody in Fort Santiago, where he waited for his trial. His first initial statement when was in custody was that the revolution was unreasonable and prejudicial to its very objectives. He completely denied his connection to the Katipunan and the revolution, but the Spanish were able to get information from torturing several people including Pasiano and Pio Valenzuela. He was accused of 3 crimes: sedition, rebellion, and illegal association. On December 26, 1896, the Consejo de la Guerra trialed Rizal. The Consejo was a panel of 7 judges composed of captains of artillery, cavalry, rangers, and engineers regiments. In the afternoon of the 26th of December 1896, the court found Rizal guilty as charged with the 3 crimes and was sentenced to death by musketry. He also needs to pay 100,000 pesos, which will be inherited by his heirs. On December 28th, the Governor General Polavieja affirmed that the execution will be held on December 30, 1896 at 7 a.m. in the morning in Bagumbayan. For me, they said trial was for show and they were just impartial and just seeking justice. On December 30, 1896, 8 Macabebes of the 70th Regiment was assigned to shoot Rizal. He refused to be shot in the back and being blindfolded. He also requested to not be shot in the head, hence he was shot in his heart. At 7:03 in the morning, he was declared dead by Dr. Felipe Ruiz Castillo, which meant that his life ended at the age of 35. His knowledge, wisdom, accomplishment, and experiences were essential to the understanding of the familiarity of the Filipino, intellectuals with modern ideas, and growth of modern ideas in Filipinos' mind. His death also proved a point that only through revolution can true freedom from the Spaniards be attained. Rizal's death marked a new era of Filipinos fighting for independence. Here I can feel that he was innocent of the crimes that were filed against him. He even rejected the idea of being shot in the back, as only the people who betrayed the country are the only ones who should be shot like that. We can also see him giving importance to the knowledge and memories that he has, as he requested not to be shot in the head, which was granted. There are 3 factions that are believed to be what happened before the execution of Rizal. First, that he wrote a retractor in the morning, attended the mass, and got married to Bracken. The second faction is that Rizal's hectic schedule made him unable to attend some religious activities, and the faction document that was submitted was considered forgery. The third faction is that Rizal never retracted. It is difficult to identify what happened at that time, whether he retracted or not. There are a lot of versions about it, and it's difficult to figure out which one is true. For me, I think the first faction is what happened. He might have retracted from Masonry and came back to the Catholic faith, which is the ideal thing to do for me as he was dying. Though he could have retracted way back when he was still in the Pitan, he did not. I think he retracted back so that he could marry Bracken and make her his official wife before dying. This is very chaotic when we are speaking about whether Rizal retracted back or not. Rizal, being a member of the Freemasonry, became the enemy of the church. Father Manuel Garcia presented 4 arguments that proved that he retracted from Freemasonry. The strongest argument he has for me is that Rizal gave Josephine Bracken a copy of De la Imitación de Cristo and called Bracken his dear and happy wife, which means that they could have been married. Another is that it is said that Rizal kissed the crucifix for his execution, and that he was accompanied by 2 priests at a time. Those arguments for me are enough to prove that Rizal has retracted from Masonry because he didn't have done those things and was not allowed to do those things if he had not been retracted from it. No matter who you are, as long as you are a member of the Masonry and are executed, you are not given a chance to be accompanied by a priest nor allowed to be on a mass. Rizal was able to do all of that things according to Father Garcia. It makes me happy to see if ever he retracted just for marrying Josephine, and that would mean a lot as he removed his stubbornness to just marry her. According to Rizal's family, on the other hand, it was said that there's no retraction paper that was signed by Rizal. They believe that the retraction paper was forged by the church itself to make it believe that Rizal retracted. This makes the topic more confusing as it deliberately gives us different information where it is difficult to depict what is true or not. Rizal's family as a witness must have been the truth, but still we don't know what happened. He might have retracted and maybe not. The information from his family slaps back the arguments of Father Garcia, as Rizal's family members said that there were no masses held for Rizal's funeral and that he was not buried in a Catholic cemetery but was buried in Paco Cemetery. Discussing his retraction make me feel dizzy as the information I have gotten was somewhat different from the other, which can someone mislead other people and make us more information gathering chaotic. So overall, the life of Rizal was full of love, pain, heartbreaks, and sufferings. He sacrificed a lot for our country and even his life. He is one that we should look up and definitely worthy of being called our national hero. So that's all for this vlog, and see you on the next one. Have a nice day.